Hello, namaste, everybody. Welcome to this special event, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras for householders. And it's really exciting, this collaboration between Yogacharini Maitre of Arkaya Foundation and Professor Balaganapathi from the Philosophical Practitioners Association of India and the University of Delhi. My name's Ross Makichi. I'm the community director for Arkaya Foundation. And this came about because Mr. Masakui Rungsung, who's the Consul General of India in Vancouver, Maitreji and I went to meet him late last year to invite him to an event in Vancouver. And he spoke very highly of a man who he met when he was the High Commissioner in Jamaica, and that was Professor Balaganapati. So this special event is a result of that introduction from Sri Masakui. And it's a celebration of International Day of Yoga, which was on June 21st. And we're really delighted by the support of the Consulate General of India in Vancouver and this collaboration. Also, a special invitation for all of you. Yogacharini Maitre and Professor Balaganapati will be offering a more in-depth online series on the Yoga Sutras for those who would like to go a bit deeper. So, this 6-week online course is being offered by donation and is open to participants worldwide. You can join every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time, and that's going to be starting on Sunday, September 7th and running through to Sunday, October 12th. I'll post the link in the chat. It's yogasutrasseries.eventbrite.ca. And now it's my great honor to welcome the Consul General of India in Vancouver, Mr. Masakui Rungsung, for some opening remarks. So welcome, Masakuiji.
Thank you. Good morning to you all, and good evening to Dr. and Professor Bala. It's such a privilege for me to be here. I will not be here for all through the session, but I thought that it's important for me to come in as the Arkaya Foundation, Maitri and Rose came in, and we had the initial conversation on other things, but I was reminded, because of the passion in what they are doing, that was telling them about my experience when I was High Commissioner in Jamaica and my association and interaction with Professor Bala, who was the chair of ICCR in the University of West Indies. And we had a fantastic time, actually. He was very helpful. And, the reason why he was a chair of ICCR is Indian Council for Cultural Relations, which is one of the agencies to propagate Indian culture under Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the fact that Professor Bala was selected for this is the testimony itself of his credentials. He has an impeccable academic credentials, but all being equal, which distinguishes Professor Bala from other professors, is his passion to reach out, to share the knowledge that he has acquired over the years. One of the concepts that I learned from him, the first lecture that he delivered in Kingston was on being more. And that exemplifies who he is, because the willingness to share, not to keep the knowledge with him, but to voluntarily pass down his knowledge to other people, is something which I really, really admire, and I'm just a big fan of him. And the depth of knowledge that he has on Indian philosophy, not just Indian philosophy, just ask him anything and he'll speak on it. As you go on into interact with him on this very program that is now programmed for the coming, I don't know for how many weeks, but this was experimented, and he has done it in Jamaica when he was there. He came up with the idea that I can do this. I never asked him anything, but all the time when he came up with a new program, it was his own initiative. That's the kind of thirst, not of learning, but of sharing. And of course, as he humbly said, that he learned a lot while giving. I think that's the spirit that we are in. And without much ado, I think I just would like to welcome Professor Bala. I cannot see him on video right now here. And thank you, Algaya Foundation, for giving this platform and giving the opportunity for bringing the best talents together. I am not an expert in this, but I use the small position that I have to facilitate so that the benefit of this knowledge reaches to many people who are willing to learn. I'll just stop it here, Professor Bala. Thank you so much once again, and you have been very, very helpful and very, very so. I mean, your greatness in giving out what you learn and what you have, and as you rightly said, you don't have to have more to give more, and that's the oft repeated words that I use when I interact on with other people on Indian philosophy. And thank you so much once again. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Masakuiji. And before we welcome Balaji to speak, we have a special presentation very quickly. Maitreji facilitates a 500-hour yoga and tantra teacher training over 2 years online, and we have a new graduate. So we wanted to just present Sadie Bartram with her certificate of completion and congratulate her. So I'll just pass over to Maitreji to briefly pass that over, and I'll just share the screen so everyone can see Sadie's certificate.
Yeah, we're doing it virtually now. And Sadie, I would say, is the example of a mature spiritual student. And my Acharya, Amma Meenakshi Devi, she used to say that when you have mature spiritual students, there's always peace in the Sangha. But when you have immature spiritual students, there's chaos and there's, things you constantly need to handle and deal with in the Sangha or in the ashram. We were living with her. So she was very, very mindful of who was admitted into the ashram. In fact, Ross and I visited this time when we were in India, we visited her. And outside the ashram, Swamiji is no more in his body. There's a little placard that says, enter only if you're happy. And this is not to say yoga is not for everybody. It is for everybody. Whatever state you're in, it is for everybody. But she was taking people on a very intense practice level where things would arise or come to the surface when that intensity of practice is there. That's why today's session is going to be for everybody. It's going to be light. It's going to be absorbable. And in a step-by-step manner, we can take it forward for householders, not necessarily people who work through most of their samskaras. But again, to give Sadie, her due, she has worked through a lot of her samskaras. There's a lot of self-awareness and a lot of spiritual maturity. And I want to say thank you for that, Sadie. When we were in India, also, she managed the Sangha on her behalf, along with Patricia and the others. Asmina also supported, but she was in the helm of things and she supported the Sangha when Ross and I, our time difference was, a bit odd. So once again, thank you for that. Her family is also there to celebrate her. So it's wonderful, wonderful to do that. We're very happy to have a very deserving person receive the certificate.
I'll just invite Sadie to quickly say a couple of words if you want, Sadie.
Maitre and Ross, I just feel so blessed to be part of this Arkaya community and so grateful for this path. I've been teaching and practicing yoga for many, many years before I met Maitre, and was in a place of just wanting to deepen and continue deepening and study more and find a community. I feel like I hadn't had that in a long time. So when I attended the first Arkaya class and then my second one, at that point I was like, okay, I know I need to study more with Maitreji. And it, just really wanting to study with a woman and really wanting to study in a way that was authentic and true to the roots and the essence of yoga. And so it's been an amazing experience being in the teacher training. I have definitely developed a deeper sense of self and deeper sense of contentment or santosham through this practice. and also inspiration, I guess, to continue sharing and finding ways to learn more and grow more and share more with those around me. So I feel very blessed and grateful. So thank you for your guidance and your support, Maitri, and to Ross as well for all of your support, and to all the community for being there every Saturday. The Saturday classes are definitely a grounding force in my life. So to my family, thank you for all of their support through it.
Thank you, Sadie. Congratulations. Now, folks, I'm excited to welcome Professor Balaganapathi, and he's going to speak for about 30 minutes. Then we'll hand over to Maitreji. And following that, there'll be time for audience Q&A and a little bit of interaction with our teachers. So you can go ahead and type your questions into the chat on Zoom, and I'll be reading those out. So go ahead and do that as we're going along, please. So without further ado, welcoming Professor Balaganapathi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Can I begin?
Yes,
Can I
please.
begin?
Yes.
Begin.
Yes,
Yes.
please. Yes, please.
Yeah. Sabamaha. Let me begin by presenting the invocation of Patanjali Maharshi. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sarirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottamam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. Friends, this is an invocation that is dedicated to Maharshi Patanjali. You know, most of us think that Patanjali is only an author of Yoga Sutra, but actually, very interestingly, he dealt with three important things that are very much useful to human life. One is yoga, which deals with chitta, the mind. Okay, yogena chittasya. And then the second one that he has given is grammar, that purifies the word. Okay, so first one is thought, second one is word, and the third one that he has given us, malam sarirasya cha vaidhyakena. He is supposed to be a rich contributor to Ayurveda, and that is also something that deals with the body, which is an organ that helps us to act in the world and reach out to the people, the other in the world. So this is how Maharshi Patanjali has given us three things. One is yoga that purifies the mind. Second one is grammar that purifies our word. And the third one is the Ayurveda that purifies the body.
I was thinking till Balaji makes the connection, they would have, this is again gifted to me from India. So one of the students in the ashram, they gifted me this.
That's wonderful, beautiful. Yeah.
And usually I have the Japamala around.
Join it.
Yes, I will hand over back to Balaji. I'm being the filler for the day, you know.
Yeah. Sorry for that issue. Rosji, I am also trying to join through my mobile. Please allow me to join so that
Okay.
if the voice is creating a problem here, you can hear me through that. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. Friends, I was thinking if we have to talk about yoga for householders, how do we do that? How do we enter into this domain of Patanjali and talk about how yoga for householders? You know, there are certain kind of misconceptions that I would like to address before I enter into how Yoga Sutra can be taken for the everyday life. One of the interesting misconceptions that we find is yoga either deals with the physical body or withdraws society completely. So there is a narrow conception of yoga that is available everywhere in the world, including India. I was mentioning about the kind of misconceptions of yoga that we have, which are to be dealt with before we get into how yoga can be rightfully useful to everyday life and to the householders. So, if at all we are looking at these misconceptions, one of the most important one that we have to deal with is a misconception that yoga basically deals with only the physical body, which means in the form of asanas, etc. Or it completely asks us to withdraw from the society through its meditation and samadhi. So that is how, at least, these two misconceptions try to project that yoga doesn't deal with me in the world. No, all of us are individuals living within the world. So if yoga is not dealing with me, who is a part of the world, then yoga has no relevance to everyday life or to a householder, right? So this is one of the misconceptions that we come across. The other misconception that I found when I was having discussions with many of my friends in India and abroad, uh, they say most of the steps that we look at in Ashtanga Yoga, uh, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra prescribes us 8 steps, and most of these steps that are provided have no relevance to my existential empirical life, except asanas, which deal with my physical postures, or probably pranayama, except these two remaining steps do not deal with my empirical existential life. This is what most of the people wrongly conceptualize yoga to be. So, my interest here is to address these two issues and say that no, this kind of conception is absolutely wrong, and yoga directly deals with everyday issues of empirical life. So if we have to begin that way, if we have to get into understanding proper, having a proper understanding of yoga, then we have to see what is the aim of human life. Each one of us, all of us have an aim in our life. What is the aim of human life? If we see it as a common ground, the common ground would be all of us would like to be happy, and we'd like to be good, and we would like to enjoy a rightful life. Most of us would be definitely looking for these three things: happy life, good life, and a kind of rightful life. So if this is what all of us desire, then interesting aspect here is, though we desire and we want this kind of life, but we don't know what good life, what happy life, and what rightful life is. And this is where the problem comes. You know, in general, you try to understand that you want something. If you want something, you should know it. If you don't know it, and if you want something, can you achieve that? That's where yoga plays a very important role for us, to help us to understand what can be good life, what can be happy life, what can be a rightful kind of life. Okay, so, and it doesn't just talk about what can be or what is good life and what is happy life and what is rightful life. It also gives us steps through which we can achieve this life. So, in this particular sense, it is not just prescribing certain kind of rules and regulations and conceptualizations of life of yogis alone. It is providing life tools for living for each one of us. Okay, so that's the beginning of Yoga Sutra. That's the way we have to look at it and try to understand it. Let me give you a brief idea of the kind of works that have come around Yoga Sutra, so that you can understand whether Yoga Sutra is conceptualized to be a tool for householders or not. In fact, except Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, all most of the other works on yoga were written as dialogues. If you look at other interesting text, Yajnavalkya Smriti, I mean Yajnavalkya Yoga Yajnavalkya, it is a text which is very popular and which is very useful because it directly draws inspiration and resources from Vedas and Upanishads. And this text was written as a dialogue. And then Yoga Vasista, another very important text, is written in the form of a dialogue. The very conception that it was developed in dialogue is to show that there should be, it is open to people to question and seek and try to understand it. And it is not just a dialogue in a regular sense. It is, say, for example, Yoga Yajnavalkya is a dialogue between Yajnavalkya and his wife Gargi. Okay, so it is a dialogue between wife and husband as to how do I integrate yoga into my life, into our life, so that we become best people and we also achieve our own dharma, our own goals of life. You know, so and the other dialogue that I'm referring to, Yoga Vasista, is a dialogue between Sri Rama and Vasista, his guru Vasista. And this happens when Rama, after his education, after he completes his education in the school, he comes back home and goes around, moves around, and does some, pilgrimage, and then he finds himself to be troubled, and that's where Vasista comes and gives him a wonderful teaching through which he helps him to get back to life with a proper way of looking at life and his own self and the relation between himself and the life and people around him. So, I mean, this text again is a wonderful text. I suggest all of you to have a look at this text, Yoga Vasista. And this is again a dialogue. And this dialogue is to prompt the individual to indulge in life and do well in life, achieve what is happy life, good life, and rightful life. Similarly, the third text that we talk about is Bhagavad Gita, which again presents wonderful conceptualizations of yoga. And this is again a dialogue. And this dialogue is to prompt the individual to get back to his work, right? So, I mean, these three instances are enough. I can give you a few more instances, but due to time limit, let me restrict myself to these three instances where we understand that the very way of conceptualization and presentation of the text in the form of dialogue mode is to help us to indulge in life, and not just indulging through the senses, but indulging through our consciousness and do well in life. And while doing well only, you can also achieve your spiritual goals. That's the very important aspect that is emphasized again and again in each of the texts that we are talking about, friends. So that's point one that I thought I should emphasize. And the second important thing that I want to mention is, some people ask me like, how do we understand, whatever is spoken through yoga is relevant to our lives? Okay, so let me begin this way. All of us accept the physical reality around us, right? And the physical reality is stated to be in three forms: solids, liquids, and gases. This is how the physical reality is presented to us. Physical reality with energy, matter with energy, is presented in terms of gases, liquids, and solids. These three are separately available to us independently, but wherever you find life, these three will be together. Wherever you find life in plants, you will find solids, liquids, and gases together there. You find it in animal life, human life, you find all these three together. Even when you look at yourself, you find all these three together within you. So now, if all of us, I mean, wherever there is life, if you find solids, liquids, and gases coming together, when we look at ourselves, uh, uh, solids are being formed in our body without our knowledge. I mean, your bones with which you are born have become so strong that they can stay for hundreds of years without getting spoiled. Your body is such a wonderful uh, if you want to call it machine or industry or whatever, right? It has such a power. So how did it make such kind of bonds which cannot be destroyed by anybody at all? No, have you ever thought about it? Think about it. And the formation of these solids, you don't know how they are being formed. The second important thing is the flow of the liquids within your body. You have no control over the liquids that are flowing in your body, but you have a small kind of control over the gases. I mean, your breath. You know, that is how your breath has the power to influence your gases, influence your liquids, and also influence the formation of the solids in your body. You know, that is where pranayama becomes so important for the individual's friends. That is how pranayama is presented by Maharshi Patanjali as the central one. You know, if you look at Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Among these 8, the middle one is Pranayama. Pranayama is the one which helps us to control the flow of the liquids within the body and also help in a better way the formation of the solids within the body. Do you understand the importance of this particular one? That is how we don't call it just gases. No, in Indian tradition we call it prana. Prana is something, though you may translate it as vital breath in English, but you don't get that intensity of prana, no, using the word prana. Okay, so I mean, this is how there is a kind of equanimity that is to be maintained in the relation between the flow of liquids and the formation of the solids and the gases that we circulate within our body. You know, even these vital breaths are said to be 5: prana, pana, apana, samana, udana. 5 kind of gases that move around within the body, which is very important for us to know. I mean, I'm just trying to emphasize the point that if philosophy of yoga is to be understood as something that is useful to everybody, every living being in the world, one of the fundamental ways of looking at it is through pranayama. And how this pranayama, I mean, taking care of or controlling the breaths helps you in dealing with yourself in a better way. Because when you are agitated, when you are completely usurped with anger, how do you take care of yourself? How do you control yourself? That's how we say take a deep breath, or take 10 times deep breath, and then you will be able to control the flow of the blood. And then that is how you can control yourself, right? So I mean, when the blood is circulated well, the oxygen which the blood takes is being circulated well. That is how pumping so much of oxygen inside is so important. This is a simple biological technique which was known to them and which was developed as a part of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Ashtanga Yoga. I'll just talk briefly about Ashtanga Yoga and I'll stop there, friends, because if we have to establish the point that Yoga Sutra is yoga is for householders or for everyday life. No, let me not say householders. It's for everyday life of each one of us. I already mentioned Ashtanga Yoga, 8 steps, right? Yama and Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama. Sorry, I missed one thing. Okay. Yeah, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. These are the 8 steps. I would consider Yama, Niyama to be dealing with social self. Okay, because Yoga Sutra begins by giving a definition of yoga as chitta vritti nirodha, which means each one of us have chitta. Chitta cannot be translated as mind loosely because mind has different connotations in the Western tradition. That is how we say, even Swami Vivekananda used the word Chitta means mind stuff, because it includes mano, buddhi, ahankara, chittani. These four are considered to be manas or chitta, according to Indian tradition. I can explain that later on at some point of time. But chitta vrittis, the mind is continuously modifying itself, and it is transforming itself into different things that I see around me and different things that I hear continuously. And how do I stop these modifications of the mind? Even if I close my eyes, I cannot stop. Okay, even during my sleep, I'm not able to stop these vrittis, because it creates a dream world and creates few more vrittis on its own. So how do I control these vrittis is the most important one. And for this, there are 8 steps that are prescribed, and the first 2 steps are yama and niyama, things that I should do and things that I shouldn't do. Okay, yamas are things I shouldn't do. Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteyam, Aparigraha, and Brahmacharya are said to be things that I should not be doing, which means telling lies, and non-violence, and then brahmacharya, celibacy, uh, asteyam, staying away from others' property, and even if it is your own property, having a detached kind of attitude. These are the 5 things which are said to be very important for an individual to practice. And similarly, we have niyamas, okay, which are the rules that you should follow for yourself, which is saucha, santosha, tapaha, Swadhyaya, and Iswara Pranidhana. Uh, Actually, I explain these things in few hours, but I have to restrict myself to few seconds, I understand. But what I mean to say is, these are like the first yamas are how I deal with the other, how I relate myself with the other. If this is pure, if this is taken care of properly, and then how I deal with myself is also taken care of properly, okay, then at least 40% of the vrittis, chitta vrittis, would come down. This is the most important thing. That is how Patanjali has given these two, yama and nema, to be the first steps. Some people wrongly, we try to think that, oh, I can directly start with meditation. Friends, that is quite fancy to do that, but all these steps. See, if you want to reach your 7th floor of your building, you go from the first floor, right? So it is important that we begin from the first floor onwards, first step onwards. And it is also said that you can do simultaneously different steps, but you cannot completely neglect first few 2 steps, which are directly related to my social self. Okay, so Patanjali in a way begins with how do you deal with the social self, and then he talks about asana, your physical self, and then he talks about pranayama, which is your pranic self. Selves are multiple, and don't get into this polar disorder or etc. Here, selves are conceptualized to be different in the sense that you have a social life where your social self comes to the front, and that's where you have to be. You have to deal with certain kind of things, and how do you deal with that? There are steps that are provided, and you have a physical self, physical body. How do you take care of it? Asanas are prescribed, and you can deal with these 3 only if you control your breath. And that is how pranic self is given importance. And beyond the pranic self, pratyahara is given importance, which is withdrawal of your senses. And then dharana is focus, which means these 2 we call sensuous self, and then mental self. Dharana is mental self. Okay. At the same time, it asks us to withdraw our senses from the world, and then that is how build your focus, dharana. And then the final 2 steps, dhyana and samadhi, are said to be our spiritual selves, which lead us to have an understanding of ourselves. Because as per Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, the goal of yoga is, he says, if you practice chitta vritti nirodha, what is it that you get? Maharishi Patanjali says you don't get anything. You only get yourself. Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam, which means you will be only getting your own self. Because the metaphor of pond is provided to us. A pond, where there are many ripples which are disturbing it completely as chittavrittis. They can be controlled by practicing these steps, and taking care of your social self itself would actually diminish 40% of your ripples. And then 25-25 with your physical self and pranic self and with your mental self. And what is it? What are the vrittis that you reduce? The last 10% are reduced through your spiritual self. But the beginning, the foundation is social self, which is very important to us. Now, friends, there are interesting questions that come up. I'm just closing it with this. There are interesting questions that come up. Like, it is easy to say that you should not you should speak truth, and you should follow swadhyaya, etc. You should take care of your purity, etc. But how do we do that? How can we follow ahimsa? How can we follow satyas, telling truth? No, it's impossible, right? And we are in the social life, and it is impossible for us to not to lie or not to kill or not to harm anyone, no, as it is being prescribed. There is a practical impossibility that people present to us, often saying that it's not possible. But friends, there is a practical way that we teach. That I am a philosophical practitioner, and we do philosophical counseling through which I try to teach, and people get good help in this way. That we say, you don't have to stop telling lies overnight. We ask people to be conscious of the lies that you're speaking. And being conscious itself would start creating a kind of reflective mind in yourself. And this reflective mind is sufficient for you to begin. And after some time, you count how many lies you are saying every day. And this itself would instigate you to reduce them. And then you start reducing them one by one, and that is how after some time you will detest to speak tell lies. You would get into the right path. So that is how whatever that is being taught as taking care of social self in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is not just for sannyasis or renouncers who live in Himalayas. Okay, they need not, they need not practice because they are all alone there. It is for us who are indulged in our life and trying to do something for us and for the society around us. And that is how it is important to realize the significance of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra for our everyday life. And with this intention, both of us, me and Maitreyi ji, are offering a course. You're most welcome to join us, and we'll deal with whatever that I have said in these few minutes. We would be making them to be possible and practically possible in our lives through a series of lectures scheduled for a few weeks. Okay, so this is where I would stop. Thank you so much to Maitreyi ji for this wonderful collaboration, and I'm grateful to His Excellency Masakoyi Rungsungji for kindly introducing and making this collaboration possible, and also for his kind words of introduction, because we strongly believe that yoga, or whatever, happy life, good life, or rightful life, is a kind of life where it's not possessing more, but it is being more, which is very important. And to be more, you need not have more. It is not required that you should have more. But even if you have less, you can still be more by being part of so many lives. And all of us have this opportunity of being part of others' lives and contributing richly. So this is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much. I see that I have finished 30 minutes. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Balaji. Thank you, thank you. A reminder to everyone that he and Maitreyi will be taking your questions for the last 30 minutes. So you can type those into the chat, and I'll be reading them out to our esteemed teachers. And now I'll introduce Yogacharini Maitreyi, who's our second teacher and founder of our Kaya Foundation. And I'll hand over to you, Maitreyi.
Thank you so much, Balaji, for accepting the invitation like Ross mentioned, our first meeting was on Zoom because Balaji is in India. And immediately it felt like maybe it's the place, maybe it's his sweet demeanor. We said, yes, we're going ahead. For me, it was a very straight yes. And he's also a very erudite and well, I would say, open-hearted person who's established in the Yoga Sutras. So he's set the stage beautifully for me to continue the talk. So I was also planning to talk about the Patanjali chant. So in the ashram, so I'll give you a little bit about, where my background comes from. So my first guru was my grandfather. And as family goes, at that point, he was not somebody I thought was, uh, somebody with that much knowledge, because he was my grandfather. It's only after he passed on and I studied with many other gurus. I first studied at the Shivananda ashram. This is over 30 years ago. And then I studied with Amma Meenakshi Devi, who Ross and I visited in Pondicherry. She was one of the very few teachers teaching Tantra. She doesn't teach anymore now. Unfortunately, her health is also not really good. And you may say, oh, somebody practicing yoga. Again, there are a lot of judgments to my come. Shouldn't she be healthy? Yeah, but if you see Ramana Maharishi also, at the end of it, at the height of it, he said, my body is not important. So we're not going there. We're actually dealing with the body. We're healing the body in yoga. But she's come to that state where she was overworking herself. She was a typical, I can say Indian woman who keeps giving, giving, giving. And then I think finally this is her way of saying, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to like rest. And unless I'm sick, people are not going to let me rest. So I think that was, the reason why she's like in bed now. And, she's the sweetest soul. She's a wonderful human being and very real. To me, Ammaji represents somebody who's really real, who doesn't talk about enlightenment. So when I was in the ashram, she was like, yo, let's start step by step. Forget enlightenment. There's all this talk about samadhi. I'm sick of, she would actually say. I've been to so many conferences. Everybody's talking about samadhi, samadhi. Let's talk about basics. And for me, that was what I needed at that age. And even at this age, when I've reached 50, I'm like, I needed at this age also, because the foundations are what are important. So I'll also start off with the Patanjali chant. We'll keep our eyes closed, and I'm going to invite everybody to keep their hands in the Jyoti Mudra. This is one of my favorite mudras. We'll try this mudra and then the Yoga Mudra where we interlace. So we're interlacing the fingers and the right thumb is dominant. So the Jyoti Mudra first, and then I will invite you in a bit to interlace and place the palms. The right palm or the right thumb over the left thumb. Now we'll start with the Jyoti Mudra, tips of the fingers touching. Jyoti is inner illumination. So the whole principle of the Yoga Sutras is moving back to the space of inner illumination. Is to cultivate inner sight and insight. And as Balaji beautifully said, when these chitta vritti, the whole Yoga Sutra starts off, it's the second verse in chapter 1, Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. So in one word, it's mind stuff, all this mind stuff. And Ammaji used to joke, let's stop the chitta chatter. We have this English word, chitta chatter. So she'll say, let's stop the chitta chatter. And I love that word. Oh, love that sentence. She used to joke around with us. Is your chitta chattering? So we're not trying to force it to stop. We're not trying to rein it in a harsh way, but very gently befriend it. Gently observe it. And as we see this chatter, this vritti, these whirlpools in the lake of our consciousness, we see our reflection change according to the vrittis. If it's a turbulent lake, then our reflection is turbulent, which means if the chitta is very agitated, then there is turbulence. I like to give a different example. When I was young, I used to go to these fairs in India where you go into a room and there are different mirrors. One mirror will show you really tall. One mirror will show you really fat. One mirror will show you really crooked. I don't know if these fairs are there in Canada. And those mirrors are the chitta. So depending on our identities, our raga, our dvesha, what we love, what we hate, what we're repulsed by, what we are attracted to, all of that, our kleshas, everything, our aberrations, our distractions, all of that influences the chitta. And Patanjali gives a very beautiful step-by-step method to move through this and find our true beauty, true reflection in the stillness of the lake, the true mirror, so to speak, not the distorted mirrors. So let's take a moment to settle our mind into our bodies. Amaji comes from a tantric tradition, so I wanted to study with a female teacher. And this is nothing like the tantra that is propagated in the West, which is highly sexualized, or in Bollywood movies, which is like black magic. Tan means body. Ra is a tool for transcendence. So we're simply reconnecting to our body at this moment. So be aware of the mudra. And then gently we can expand and liberate the body. So in the body, we can feel this expansion of consciousness, that we're not limited. We're not limited to the vrittis. We're not limited to the distortions we so strongly identify with. And that can happen only with inward turning, this inner sight, this insight. So let's take a moment to cultivate this inner sight, insight, this karuna sakshi bhava, compassionate, actionable compassion, karuna, and sakshi bhavas to witness. So I'm going to invite you to witness your physical body, starting from your toes to the top of the head. If you need to sit a bit taller, please do that. If you need to relax your body, please do that. If you need to find a backrest, please do that. And find sthiram and sukham in your asana. Sthiram is stability, firmness. Sukham is ease. And by practicing just these two foundational principles, Patanjali says we can move beyond the dvandvas, which means these polar opposites that pull us in extreme directions. And the Bhagavad Gita also talks about it. It says, don't eat too much, don't eat too little, don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little. And we find a middle path. Of course, the Yoga Sutra says it in a different way and in a different context. So once again, coming back to body, being aware of our body, being aware of the sensations in the palms. That way you're not distracted by the screen. And all your prana shakti is not going to the screen. Even though you're listening to me, it's going inwards. It's going to cultivate this antara drishti, this divya drishti. Antara is inwards, inner sight. Divya is the light, or Divya is a common Indian name. My cousin's name is also Divya. This light of wisdom or knowledge, higher knowledge, not internet knowledge. Now let's bring our awareness to our breathing. Again, Balaji beautifully spoke about the importance of pranayama in alleviating these vrittis, these aberrations of the mind. On a day when we are agitated, when we're upset, you'll find if you get into the habit of observing yourself, which is fundamental to yoga, you'll observe that, oh, today these vrittis are a lot. And therefore, my thought processes, my feelings, everything is very garbled, jumbled. On a normal day, I don't feel so violent towards X person. Or maybe depressed. I feel violent towards myself. I am such a stupid person. I am such a fool. So all this harsh self-judgment can happen as these vrittis become agitated. These whirlpools become agitated. These ripples in the pool become agitated. And pranayama is a beautiful tool to settle these ripples of the mind. So simply observe your breath. Follow the breath as it moves into the nostrils, into the windpipe, into the lungs. And follow the breath out. We're not doing anything. We're not manipulating the breath yet. Simply be aware, how is your breathing today? Is it smooth? Is it short? Is it agitated? As you're aware, is there a need to sigh or yawn? All these are wonderful ways of understanding the self. These identities, these vrittis, come through as, or we become observant and we become aware of it as we observe the body, as we observe the breath. And we don't have to get too attached to these observations. In this moment, it's like this. That's it. It's useful to be aware. And then we can shift it through the practice of asana, pranayama. So now we're simply observing the breath. There's nothing more to this. Now, pranayama consists of 2 words. Even though you're listening to my lecture, let your observation or let your focus, let your concentration be on your breathing. How does it feel to learn in an embodied way? That's what yoga is. It's not just about intellectual learning. And all the great masters, including Patanjali, speak about this self-realization. They didn't say self-intellectualization. We're great intellectuals in the modern world. And including myself, I was raised in a system in India, which is very left-brain Western education. It's not embodied. It's not integrated with all the koshas. So we're still continuing to be aware of the breathing. And now we'll do a simple breath called the Sukha Bhastrika. Sukham is comfortable. Bhastrika is bellows. It's not complicated at all. We're going to breathe in through the nose, expanding our rib cage as much as we can, and breathe out through the mouth, lips pouted. If keeping your eyes closed feels difficult, sometimes people may have trauma, then you can definitely keep your eyes open. But we conserve a lot of energy as we keep our eyes closed. So it might seem odd for some people. Why am I keeping my eyes closed for so long? So on a basic level, it's a conservation of energy. On a secondary level, the focus is turned inwards. So we saw that pranayama is not just breathing. Prana, ayama. Prana is life force, energy, shakti, and ayama is expansion. So pranayama is the conscious expansion of our life force that we may deplete in many, many, many ways. Wrong postural habits, wrong lifestyle habits, wrong emotional habits, wrong thought habits, all contributing to chitta vritti, these aberrations in the pool or lake of our consciousness. These ripples, or sometimes even whirlpools, in the lake of our consciousness get agitated because of the wrong lifestyle, emotional habits, and thought habits. Come back to the breath. And first, we typically in pranayama, we learn about the mechanics of the breath. That is how our lungs are positioned, lower chest breathing, mid chest breathing, upper chest breathing, then Mahat Yoga pranayama, full chested breathing. And then we go into the subtleties of the breath, the energetics of the breath. So it's very important to understand that the breath is not prana. Just like the windmill that generates electricity gets to generate it from the wind itself is not the electricity. The wind is used to generate electricity. So similarly, the breath is used to generate prana. This is the energetics of breath. So think of yourself as a windmill that can generate this prana through efficient breathing, that can soften these vrittis with effective pranayama, that can remove the veil that prevents us from seeing clearly, that prevents us from cultivating discernment. So pranayama also releases the tinted glasses. Modern times, I can say sunglasses instead of veils. So if we're looking at the world through gray glasses, maybe we had a really bad childhood and we think everybody is bad, or we have rose-tinted glasses, we think everybody is good. We can have different tints with which we see the world depending on our conditioning, depending on our desires. So pranayama releases this tint, gives us clear perception, good discernment. And Patanjali beautifully describes that also. Why it is important. So the step-by-step process of seeing ourselves and the world clearly and cultivating discernment is a very important step in yoga. How do we cultivate it? Pranayama. So let's take 3 more breaths to celebrate this very simple step that Patanjali has given us. Breathe in, expand, expand, expand. And breathe out through the mouth, lips pouted. Breathe in, expand, expand, expand. And breathe out. One last time, breathe in. Expand, expand, expand. And release. Beautiful. And just come back to observing your body, observing your breath. There are many other things you can observe, like your multidimensionality, but we will leave that for another day when we continue with the series. Now we'll just stick to body and breath. So you understand, even by bringing your focus and concentration, gentle focus on these two, there's so much transformation that can take place where these vrittis or these aberrations of your mind, these whirlpools of the mind, can be reasonably peaceful. Now we're going to take a moment in silence. Still keeping the awareness on the body and breath. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarotamam pravaram muninam Patanjali Pranjali Ranatosmi Om. Gently rub your palms. Place them on the eyes, soothing the eyes, calming the nervous system. And gently release it. Beautiful. I'm going to invite you to sip a lot of water during the session. And sometimes I joke in the teacher training, if you don't remember anything in the teacher training, at least remember to hydrate yourself. Because in the ashram, we start off by step things, just, shifting our lifestyle, doing simple things. And my teachers would always say, this is a common saying, and they didn't create it, always chew your water and drink your food, which means we don't gobble up the water, we chew it in the mouth, which is how we absorb prana from the back of the throat. And then we chew the food enough times where we are able to drink it. So all these lifestyle habits are taught with an acharya, with a guru. And that is why the Yoga Sutras are sutras. So constantly Swamiji and Amma would remind us that a sutra means a thread. So it's a very, very simple thread that strings all these pearls of wisdom. Now, if you look at the Yoga Sutras itself, there are no techniques given. Nobody's going to teach you the Mahat Yoga Pranayama. It's not an instruction manual of asanas. It's not an instruction manual of pranayama. It just gives you this broad outline, this threading of these pearls of wisdom, where you can go study with an acharya, and then everything is taught to you through guidance. There is this reparenting that happens as you go live with your guide, as you go live with your guru. So Patanjali starts off by talking about this chitta vritti, that yoga is this chitta vritti, which means yoga is the cessation of this agitation of the mind created due to various reasons. It could be agitation because we've had too much coffee. It could be agitation because we fought with a loved one. It could be agitation because we read the news and our mind is filled with all these negative things of what's going on in the world, and maybe we've overloaded our news, quota that day, where the mind is not overwhelmed and can't handle it. So we become acutely aware of what creates this agitation in us, and that is part of the yama niyama that Balaji was talking about, which is the two foundations or the two rungs or two angas of Ashtanga Yoga. The first two are Yama Niyama. Many, again, like he was saying, falsely think that it's only asana, pranayama, I mean, little bit pranayama. Even that is forgotten these days. Mostly asana. You see all these complicated shirasasana and headstands and handstands, and unfortunately, that is what it's reduced to. But if we follow the yama, one of the yama is ahimsa. So by inflicting ahimsa on ourselves, these vrittis actually increase. Ahimsa is, inflicting himsa on ourselves. Himsa is violence. Ahimsa is non-violence. So whenever you put in Sanskrit a before it, it negates the word. So himsa is violence, ahimsa, non-violence. So whenever we inflict himsa on ourselves, then these ripples, this vritti that Patanjali talks about, increases. So it is very important on a day-to-day level to start with ourselves. And that is what the ashram lifestyle or having a reasonably sattvic or clean lifestyle helps us, where we are not causing excessive vrittis in ourselves. So Patanjali also goes on to talk about these vrittis, how to avoid them, what are the different kinds of vrittis. I won't go into it because it's very technical. So it's fascinating when you read the Yoga Sutras, how technically he goes, he doesn't stop with, okay, vritti. Okay, there are 5 kinds of vrittis. There is this kind of distractions, 11 kinds of this, and that. So he's very technical in the way he approaches each of it. Then he also says Ishvara. Ishvara, usually people in India think Ishvara is God. He also very technically describes that Ishvara is somebody who is no identity with all these vrittis. He's attained that state. So he doesn't call Ishvara God. It is Ishvara who's this very attained being where the full expression, the Swarupa, is fully expressed. In us, it may not be fully expressed because of the identity with these vrittis. And he also says one word that truly exemplifies Ishvara, again, not alluding to God here, alluding to this quality which is fully expressed, where Ishvara is rested in his true essential nature. The word that is closest to this vibration of Ishvara, commonly translated as God in India, is the Pranava Om. The sounds A, U, and M. So the Pranava Om practice is also a beautiful vibrational practice to release these vrittis. So in the ashram, sometimes we do Pranava Oms through the night, especially Mahashivratri and certain opportune moments astrologically. We'd be sitting the whole night and just chanting Om. And the next day, even though I haven't slept, or many students haven't slept, there will be this, I can't call it a high, but this heightened awareness, a very heightened awareness of expansion in the body. And that is what these vibrational practices give us. So similarly, as you go along, he gives very practical advice also. He lists quite a few qualities. I'm going to just list them. So, as we go along in chapter 50, he, oh, sorry, this is chapter 30. Sorry, he talks about the distractions also that might come. I just thought I'll read it out. So he says, disease can be a distraction, dullness can be a distraction, doubt can be a distraction. So Amma used to read this, make us read this. I'm talking about 25, 30 years ago. It's still very relevant. Carelessness can be a distraction, laziness can be a distraction, sensuality can be a distraction, false perceptions can be a distraction. Failure to reach firm ground can be a distraction, because sometimes we get disheartened. We're like, oh, we're doing this practice, but I'm still not feeling stable. And that can actually, we can be distracted or disheartened by that. Sometimes we may attain a certain level and then we may slip from that place. That also can be a distraction, or we can get disheartened. So when we are on this path, we have to remember not to get disheartened by all these things that arise as a result of the practice as well. So if you see right through Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, not only these threads or pearls of wisdom are beautiful ways to tell us, okay, this is there for all of humanity, these traumas, these distractions, this disheartenment. You're not alone. So it makes us feel, okay, but it's not my problem alone, it's a problem of all of humanity. And in that we are united, including myself. Okay, maybe I've done a bit more sadhana. So, I know how to reset myself to a point where this aberration or where this distraction doesn't pull me into too much of a cesspool. Sometimes these whirlpools can take us right down where we feel suffocated. So that may not happen. I might always remain above water. So that is what sadhana gives. And then again, we are rising, we're stilling, we're opening the heart. And then with practice, you'll find more and more joy, more and more ease. Of course, there'll be certain points in our life where we have to meet these karmic situations that come up, and that's part of life. as well. So I'm just looking at the time. I'll close in 1 more minute. Then we'll go to question and answers, So just to round it off, I was saying how Patanjali starts with this chitta vritti. He gives all these technical things, then he goes on to describe Ishvara, then, he tells you what this distraction or disheartenment can be. Then he goes on to describe the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs. And in the teacher training, the students have to contemplate each of the yama and niyama. Balaji was talking about how the yama is conscious restraint. We're actually, yes, we're looking at it with relationship to society, but we're also looking at it as, okay, I'm restraining this impulse to survive at any cost. So for example, ahimsa, when we are in that animalistic, survivalistic stage, you think, oh, we can do anything, we can harm another to survive. So we're looking at a particular yama. There are 5 yamas. They're not like the 5 commandments, because it is not, thou shalt not. It is not like that. It is more contemplating ourselves with relationship to that and saying, where am I? Can I refine it better? And as I refine, for example, non-violence, the ripples start reducing. So there is a direct relationship between refinement of the yama, one of them being non-violence, and the vrittis. So this relationship you start seeing and saying, oh, okay, the more I practice the yama, the more peaceful my life becomes. These vrittis release. I'm able to live with myself, I'm not living in an agitated inner environment. So like that, all these tools are extremely practical and extremely applicable. So that is what I want to leave you with, so that there is time for Q&A. And I'm happy to stay a little longer than 10:30 also, should, I don't know about Balaji. He's like on his full yatra, so we won't stop him, for more than needed. But yes, I will leave the floor open for more. And like I said, even Balaji was saying, this time is not enough. This is just giving you little appetizers. Hopefully it'll inspire you to go deeper. Yeah.
Can I
Thank-
ask question? Sorry.
Oh, yes, please go ahead. Just if I'll tell people to you can go ahead in a moment. I'll get people to just raise their hand and then unmute their mic, but you
Okay,
can go
okay.
ahead, please. You can ask your question now.
Thank you, Ross. I have a question because Maitre, you're just explaining about chitta and vritti. Chitta is agitation, as you said. What is vritti? Can you explain one more time, Maitre, please?
Vritti is the agitation. Sorry. Vritti is the agitation.
Vritti is agitation.
Yeah. So any aberration, anything that, like I said, my guru used to call it the chatter. So the chatter is the vritti. I mean, she used to simplify it, because whenever students were talking, so listening, they'll say, what is the chitta? She was making a pun on words. What is the chitta chatter? What is the chitta chatter? So that constant chatter, that constant flux, that constant agitation in the mind is the vritti. And then the chitta, there are different translators who translate it differently. Some say it is all the mind stuff, which is composed of, ahamkara, buddhi, the chitta, the unconscious mind. My guru would say, just start with your unconscious. Your conscious mind wants to listen. So you start with, being aware of your unconscious mind that doesn't want to come along, that doesn't want to listen. So you just take care of that unconscious mind. That is enough, she'll say. So each guru will start, interpret chitta slightly differently, but basically it means be aware of this unconscious way of behaving, where you allow yourself a free rein instead of reining yourself in a little bit. So that is where you
Beautiful.
need the discipline. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Asmina has a question for Professor Balaganapathi. You can go ahead, Asmina.
Professor, thank you for going into so many different aspects of Patanjali Sutra. My question is, you brought up that, it's very hard to say, okay, speak the truth, do this, do that, do that. The mind almost gets agitated with that instruction. So in your way, when you're teaching how to take that first step. Would you just go into maybe one thing about how you would deal with somebody who has a lot of vritti, and by the instruction doesn't help? So how would you let that person come to experience that? What would your methodology be to help that process?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. In fact, that begins everything, how do we begin is the question. Right? So we all, most of us know that there are so many vrittis happening in the mind which are not under my control. Okay, so if I have to begin with Ashtanga Yoga, say truthfulness or ahimsa, how do I begin that? The methodology that we have developed is making the individual just be conscious. Conscious doesn't mean, we use these words interchangeably, but these two are two different words: being aware and being conscious. So here it's just being aware. Just being aware. Say, for example, we say you begin with one, truthfulness. Okay, and then just be aware how many times you're violating that in a day. So this awareness itself would make you to start reflecting on it. So for example, somebody may say, oh, am I so bad that I have violated this truthfulness 50 times in a day? This awareness itself will lead you to a kind of reflective attitude. And I personally believe that philosophy means reflective discipline. Philosophy is a reflective discipline. Each one of us, or as I was mentioning in my invocation as well, which even Maitreyi has recited, we can be reduced to three things: what we think, what we speak, and what we do. Okay, majorly we are composed of these three. We are comprised of. So if it comes to your awareness that what I am thinking about myself, this being reflective of your thoughts, of your words, and of your actions, this itself would make you go to the second step. First one is awareness, that automatically will lead you to being reflective. And the third one is this would lead you to start limiting yourself. Limiting the violation of this something that you are supposed to follow, truthfulness. So it is not complete stoppage of speaking, lying in a day. It's like step by step on your own, being conscious of your actions, being conscious of your thoughts, being conscious of your words, you stopping on your own. So uh, this happens because we have dealt with such kind of cases many, and people found very good results of following this. Okay, so instead of asking somebody to abruptly stop, it is always good to make them be aware. So that's the first step, I would say. Yeah.
Thanks, Balaji, and thanks, Asmina, for the question. There's another one here in the chat from Charlie Prasad, and maybe Balaji, since you're already up right now, we can have you answer first, and then Maitreji, if you want to add something after. So the question says, I'm curious about brahmacharya and the idea of celibacy. In our modern world, there is a feeling that sexual health and expression is important. I think brahmacharya is often understood as restricting the sexual self. Do you agree that this is what brahmacharya means? If so, how can we reconcile these two sides of the conversation? How can we practice brahmacharya without being sexually repressed? So
Yeah, this is a very important question, especially. Yeah, sorry. Can I?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
This is a very important question in the context of yoga for householders. If we are advocating that yoga is for householders, And if yoga preaches brahmacharya, so what is this brahmacharya that yoga is prescribing is very important to be reflected upon. So this is not complete abstinence from family life of union, it should not be taken that way. Within the family, I mean, within the married life, it's like there are certain kind of rules that every culture has that we are supposed to follow. And it is also that brahmacharya is mentioned as a part of yama niyamas. And the niyamas, and you should not say take any of them in isolation. No, you have to take them together. The niyamas are 5. The first one is purity, saucha. Saucha means purity. How do you keep yourself pure in your thoughts and your words and your actions becomes very foundational kind of one. Once you start taking care of that purity of your own self, then it would lead to santosha, which is, santosha is not happiness. Santosha is contentment. So once you start taking care of your purity, it would automatically lead to a kind of contentment with yourself. Contentment means contentment with the self, right? So these two would lead to automatically brahmacharya, which is a kind of control over your own senses and being involved where it is dharmically allowed. Dharma is the one which rules there. Okay, dharmically allowed. So that's where you try to indulge in the things. So which means basically brahmacharya is not complete abstinence. Complete abstinence is prescribed for yogis, I mean renouncers. That is true. But for the householders, it is not complete abstinence in that sense, but it is like within the dharmic principles, you have to follow certain kind of rules, and then it is allowed to follow, have your sexual life. So that's how it has to be seen as an integral part of niyamas, which, where there are other 4 things which try to support it. This is how I would respond. Yeah. If Maitreji would like to add something.
Thank you, Balaji. Beautifully said. So to go back to that question, like Balaji was saying, the prescription for householders is not abstinence to live a life dharmically. So if the agreement is, oh, we're in a monogamous relationship, of course you're hurting. There is ahimsa, you're hurting that person if you're being unfaithful in that relationship. So there itself, the first yama itself is gone, if you're being unfaithful. So within that space, there is a sanctity. And in Tantra, we go even further where we are understanding, even if you're not being unfaithful, what is the connection that you're creating? Is it in alignment with Brahman or the cosmic consciousness? Acharyam. So acharyam is behavior. Vichar is thought. Achar is behavior. So if you study in a Gurukula, like I did, usually the teacher doesn't, oh, you passed the course, so here is this title of, Acharya. It's not handed out like a certificate at the end of the program. The teacher is observing you and saying, can this person translate yogic vichar, thought, into action, which is achar? So if you see brahmacharya, that word achar or acharyam is there in it, this behavior. Can there be refinement of behavior? Can there be subtlety of behavior? Or is it all about titillation and getting, a high out of it? Can we expand into consciousness and sacredness even in this union and create a space for that? So we're not looking at repression, we're looking at refinement, conscious refinement, which is very, very different from suppression or repression. So that is what we're doing in brahmacharya. And also to kind of reel back into, the previous question, because it's connected to brahmacharya as well. So this refinement process happens as we can observe ourselves. And that's why constantly in the teacher training, this foundation of karuna sakshi bhava, compassionate witnessing. Otherwise, we can be very harsh on ourselves. We can judge ourselves and we can condemn ourselves. Oh, I'm a liar. And immediately you don't want to see yourself, because if you judge yourself harshly, then, your body recoils into wanting to observe. So that is why this karuna or actionable compassion also is important as we observe everything, our sexual lives, our family lives, our own behavior and reactiveness with ourselves and with another human being, our own engagement with ourselves and another human being. So we're communicating our sexual needs to our partner, but also respecting the boundaries and the sexual needs of our partner as well in the equation. So that is also very important, even though we're not being unfaithful outside of it. So of course, there are many, many, many nuances which become apparent to it as we practice pranayama. There is a certain subtlety in touch that we start to enjoy as we deepen in pranayama. Maybe earlier you needed, like all this junk food with, lots of sugar. I'm sure all of you have had this experience. As you start practicing yoga, too much sugar actually you don't like, or at least that happened to me. I was like, I can't handle too much sugar. My sense of taste became more and more refined. So similarly, your sense of touch, your sense of connection, or also I can guarantee you, if you're doing the practices, will become more and more refined. So I'll leave with that. Yeah.
Thank you both. There's a question here from there's a comment from Charlie who asked the question, who just says that's really helpful, especially the meaning of acharya. Thank you. There's a question here from Rebecca. She's wondering about the course. There's the more in-depth 6-week course that is being offered by Maitreji and Balaji starting September 7th. That'll be 6 Sundays in a row, 2 hours each Sunday, and it's by donation. I've put the link in the chat, which is Yoga Sutras series.eventbrite.ca. And Rebecca's just curious about that course. She asked, will it mainly be yama and niyama, or can you just kind of talk a little bit about the course? I think she was curious.
I'll
So I'm not sure who wants to
go
go first.
first. Yeah, I'll let him go first. And then.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to see the curiosity of the participants here. I welcome you all to join us. As Maitreji has mentioned, it is by donation, so you're absolutely free, But otherwise, my intention, I mean, both of us have discussed a lot, Maitreji and me. I would be dealing with the text, but while dealing with the text, I would come up with practical utility, useful tools. That's what I would try to provide to you. Okay, and I believe Maitreji would be giving practice sessions as well along with that. So that is how we want to complement each other, and it is not just limited to yama and niyama. We would be going beyond that. In fact, friends, if you know about Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, the text is comprised of 4 parts, and the second part, last portion of the second part, deals with Ashtanga Yoga, and then it even proceeds to the third part as well. So we would not be, I mean, my intention is to cover as much as possible, but we will is possible because in 6 weeks or 10 weeks, it's probably it's impossible to cover everything. As you heard Professor Rungsung Masakuiji, I mean, His Excellency Masakuiji was talking about, like, I taught this course, the whole text, 197 sutras in 20 weeks at Jamaica. So that we are condensing it to 10 weeks. So from that you can understand. But our intention is to continue this kind of an endeavor and come up with more refined and more practicable solutions to everyday life by rereading and rereading again and again the Yoga Sutra text. That's what we are trying to do. So, but we promise you that we will do our best. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Balaji. So, as he was mentioning, there is going to be a broad understanding of the entire text. It's not going to be just yama niyama, but yes, when it comes to certain practical practices, we're going to give the recommendations that Patanjali has given, which is one of the foundational practices is yama niyama. Then we have asana, we have pranayama. So all of those practices will be delved into and taught also. But today I was giving you little snippets of how he's given pointers to different things. So we will be giving those pointers as well. So it'll be a very broad outline of everything. I lived for many years with my acharya and was not enough. I've come into the world, been practicing, doing my sadhana for 30 years. 30 years is not enough. So we'll do our best, like Balaji was mentioning. We'll do our best.
Yeah, just to add one more point, it's like it's an interesting combination that we have. Like Maitreji is into the path, and she is into the traditional system of learning and teaching, and she herself is a realized person. And I'm a professor. Basically, I'm only a teacher in the university education system. But I have read the text thoroughly, and I would try to bring out few things which would work as tools that you can use in your life, right? So I believe this is a very promising kind of collaboration that we came up with. So yeah, take your time and please join us.
Thank you. Thank you. And one more thing, Balaji is also a wealth of wisdom with Sanskrit grammar. I do teach some courses on Sanskrit appreciation, but I'm nowhere a scholar. My grandfather was a scholar and the other teachers were scholar. So I would say those who are coming, take advantage of, his scholarly, scope in that as well. If you have any questions about that as well, he's very learned. So I'm very excited to have you here, Balaji.
Thank you. Even I am excited for this collaboration. But may I take permission from all of you and leave the platform? It's already 11:30 here. So
Yes, please. I think that, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think there is a question from Nutanji also, which we'll answer, and then we can close in a while. Thank you so much for
that question.
making it. Yeah.
Nutanji was just asking the timing of the 6-week series, which I put in the chat a few times. It's 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time. So in India, it will be 9:30 to 11:30 p.m. IST. Yeah.
On Sundays, right? Yeah.
On Sundays, yeah. So all the info is in the chat there. You can go to yogasutras.eventbrite.ca, or you can always email infoarkaya@gmail.com. I'll put that in the chat as well. And I put the links to Professor Balaganapathi's personal website and his not-for-profit, the Philosophical Practitioners Association of India, and to Maitreji's website as well, where you can learn more about her programs and teacher training. So a big thanks to both of you. Really, it's such an honor to learn from both of you. And I know that and I'm sure everybody else got a lot out of this, and looking forward very much to the 6-week series in September. So thanks everybody for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just as an aside, the teachers group is going to meet half an hour after this. This is a separate group, but I'm just going to extend the invitation to whoever wants to stay back. Usually we have, after our programs, we have half an hour thing of just debriefing and going deeper. So if anybody in the group wants to join that group, you're welcome. So we won't cut the call. We'll just continue on. This part or this portion is done. And typically we close with a dhanyavadaha. We just say thank you to ourselves for making the time, for investing in self-awareness, self-knowledge. And then we'll thank everybody in front for their presence, for making it. And then we'll touch the earth, thank the earth, the masters, the First Nations people of the land, and especially the guides who offer their time, like Balaji, and everybody else who's contributed as well. Thank you so much. And we'll move over to the next segment. Thank you so much.